Hello, everybody. Welcome to September. I'm Starlene here with Mark. We're going to be talking about the astrological aspects for the month of September. We are a few days into September already, but we talked about the end of September last month, so that's okay. We're going to give ourselves a little bit of a pass because it's been a rough month. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I'd have to say that was probably one of the most brutal Mercury retrogrades ever in history. And then too, like Mercury goes direct, and then Uranus stations, and Pluto re-enters Capricorn, and there's a mutable T square in the middle of the Mercury retrograde. That about kicked my bottom on about every possible level.
Yeah, I can feel you on that one. And it's funny because both of our phones took a nosedive during the Mercury retrograde phase. So did you get a new one yet? I don't even know if you got a new phone.
Finally, I waited till the day after Mercury went direct because I couldn't handle it anymore. So yes, I went like 10 days without a phone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like wild. I went about a month and I was using my tablet, and then I had to get a phone. But I didn't I'm using an old phone right now. I'm waiting for the new phone to get in. But that's not why we're here to talk, but that is an interesting thing. Who else had phone problems during Mercury retrograde? Anybody? Tell us. We want to hear. So as I always ask you, what is the key highlight of this month coming up?
So I think because it's 2024, we get a bonus. We get two really super entertaining periods in September. The first one was the beginning of the month, which we talked about it in the August show because I knew it was going to be chaos and there would be some disruption probably to getting. But Uranus station on September 1st, which was last Sunday, Uranus stationed retrograde. Pluto, which was already retrograde, re-entered Capricorn, and this will be for the last 2.5 months of our lifetime. Thank God. Mars was square Neptune. Venus was conjunct the South Node. And then on the Monday and Tuesday this week, what was that? Tuesday, September 2nd through Wednesday, September 4th, the moon was in Virgo, so it was hitting all the other mutable planets. And then Mars entered Cancer yesterday afternoon on Wednesday. And so then that's enough for the first section.
That was about a month in what, so 4 days?
Moon in Virgo. Yeah, and that was like on Wednesday morning, the moon in Virgo was square Mars in Gemini at 29 degrees of the two Mercury ruled signs squaring each other.
What day was that? What you said?
That was Wednesday.
So yesterday.
The 4th, yeah, that was September 4th. I don't know if the other big section will be as powerful as that, but in the middle of the month, we have another mutable T square. With this in Venus in Virgo. Square to Jupiter into Saturn. And then we have there's a an Earth grand trine, an air grand trine, and there will be a. Did I lose that? No, I got the right month. Yeah. Okay. There will also be a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. Yeah, we'll get to that. So that's like the second hot spot for the month is definitely around September, like 14th through 17th is the.
It's the overall kind of like highlight, if you will, of the month.
Or low light. It's when the circus comes back to town.
Yeah, I know. That's why we chose the crazy circus music. That was a really spontaneous thing, actually, but it fit. It feels like the world is going a little bit kooky. And I was showing you some of the interesting things that Sirius ways in which Sirius, the program that we use, lays out the ability to look at transits. One is a timeline, and I can link a link to the image after the show in the description box. So if you're interested in looking at what the timeline looks like, since it's a live show, I'll just wait till afterwards, but I'll just put it up and you guys can download it if you want. But it's a timeline of the entire month of the transits. It's a pretty cool way to look at it. And you can see, when they're strong and weak and all that stuff. It's just a different way to look at it as opposed to the astrology wheel. And so then I spent about a good hour looking at the midpoints that were going on, that were aspecting in this month too, And so it was interesting because in the middle of the month, we didn't really have anything that was going on in terms of, patterns that were really strong until the middle of the month anyway, like looking at the vibrations and the midpoints. But then we had Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto like making an aspect to each other. And this goes from the 11th to the 14th. So I think that coincides with the new moon, right? Or the full moon, correct?
Yeah. Yep. And the eclipse in Pisces.
Yeah. So, I mean, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, that's even if you're trying to be light, that's not a light. That's not a light connection. If you're trying to be like light in your interpretation is what I mean. So, but we'll get to that. That was interesting. And I'll share a little bit about these vibrations just on a very light level too, as we get to them. So, okay. Are you thinking this is an easier month than last month? Because I will tell you, August was probably one of the most hectic months for me personally. And I don't know if that was a Mercury retrograde thing going on or Pluto on my midhaven. That's possible too. It just felt like every time I had put out one fire, another one just was raging over here that I had to fix. And I'm like, running from one to the other.
Yeah, no, it's been nonstop. And I know I've probably said this 35,000 times before this year. But that's one of the things of Saturn and Pisces is for like whatever 2018 or whatever it was through 2023, we had Saturn in Capricorn and then in Aquarius, which are two like pretty stern signs for Saturn to be in, because Capricorn is kind of control, Aquarius is fixed energy. So we had like 7 years of Saturn in 5 years in Saturn in really difficult signs. And so then now Saturn in Pisces, Pisces is not a strength sign for Saturn. Saturn's definitely weak in Pisces. But I think there's this feeling of like the rubber band has been stretched too far and now it's just a wobbly mess. So there's like, we had 5 years of too much structure. Now there's no structure to it. Like every single thing happening anywhere on this entire planet right now is up for change every second. Every second, anything can change. That's because
So
there's
that's
no.
interesting. Is it because Pisces is the mutable sign that's like changeable and does the metamorphosis type thing? Is that why? And Saturn's the structure. Is that the reason you say that?
Yeah, because it just like if you look back historically, like Saturn and Pisces has been great for creativity and music and arts and more like nebulous, ethereal, non 3D stuff. But for getting things put in
Concrete.
right,
Thing?
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I can see
Saturn
that.
and Pisces is really difficult for. I mean, in the the Earth we have right now out of the outer planets is Uranus, which is change, chaos, and disruption. So we don't even have the Taurus planet's not in a boring. It's not a boring planet for Taurus to be in. And then we've got Pluto at we're at the end of a 20-year cycle of Pluto in Capricorn, and I think you can see that like everything's kind of Pluto is death, rebirth, transformation. That's or I guess death, transformation, rebirth. So we got, and I heard somebody had mentioned that it's been like a couple hundred years since Pluto has re-entered the sign it's in for 3 different times. So this is November 18th when Pluto enters Aquarius for good for the next 20 years. That'll be the 3rd time that Pluto's entered Aquarius in this last like year and a half.
Right.
So and we're gonna have, I don't think we have 3, but we have at least 2 of Neptune and Saturn going to leave Pisces and enter Aries, back to Pisces, Aries. We're going to have 2 of those transformations coming up between next spring and spring of 2026. So when you see that like the outer planets move so slow, I'm just rambling now, I know.
No, it's good because you're teaching people so in the same level,
Yeah. So when you have like outer planets like doing that 2-step back and forth over a degree, that's a very significant point. Those degrees are super important when they go back and forth over. That's a really big lesson, and the universe is going to stop and make sure that you stop and learn those lessons, or at least it's not going to make sure you learn the lessons. It's going to make sure you're aware of the lessons. The universe is going to let you know that the circus is in town.
I interviewed Georgia Stathis on the Cosmic Connections podcast. We haven't put it out yet. It'll be out in a couple of weeks. But she is doing her whole lecture at the Cosmic Patterns Conference that's coming up in March. And non-shameless plug here. Is about the 29th degree. And so the whole conversation we had on the podcast was her talking about that, which I really loved because here I am going through the 29th degree. Well, we're all going through the 29th degree Pluto, but it happens to be on my 0 degree Aquarius sun. So, there's that. And then other things in my chart that is also connecting with degree 29 and how intense it is. And, Saturn's not quite there. Pluto's there. Neptune's there. We're like right at the beginning and end of so much. And the shifts that are happening, I mean, you have to be able to see that. I would imagine every perspective would be able to see that in the world we live in. But obviously, I don't know what everybody's thinking. But things are changing. Yeah. And it's about like rebirthing, reforming yourself in some way or another. It's to some context or another. And of course that depends on your own personal chart, but yeah.
And my sun's at 29 degrees. So I'm getting totally. So there's this
still living.
So like it works like it's there, like things die and crumble, but then like as soon as those things crumble, like new things are trying to be born.
Right.
And so that's what these last like year and a half has been. And this includes the upcoming year too, up until early 2026. There's going to be these repeated themes of old ways and old things dying and new things trying to come up through it. Because like something's got to anything that dies, like something's got to replace it. So it's
Right.
like that's kind of the repeated theme that, and it's easy to get stuck on. I think it's easier to see the things that are leaving our environment and the things that are dying off. But that's also a good time to, like, if there's things not in the world that you want to see, this is a good time to start. You may want to wait till after November 18th when Pluto's in Aquarius, but now is at least a good time to be thinking about things you want to see that aren't out there.
But putting action or solidifying them would be better when Pluto's in Aquarius.
Right.
So there wouldn't be that, because that, I mean, Capricorn of all signs that's a harder placement, I think, for the 29th degree. Seems a little more challenging than it could be in other places on the zodiac. In the zodiacs, maybe that's just my perception, but the structure that Capricorn is, having that release to the different energy of Aquarius, although it is ruled by Saturn and Uranus. Saturn traditionally, it still has energy of structure, but there's this, the shift and leaning into that as opposed to holding on to what was, I think is the theme, the idea behind that transformation, that change. I mean, this is speaking on an archetypal level as we all go through these archetypes in our life and morph from one to the other and so on. Very cool. Okay, so this was our little wind up. Let's talk about the month itself, go into detail with it. I have put up all of the aspects that we're going to talk about, and so I'll put them on the bottom of the screen. You guys can look at it, and then if you're looking at it another time, you can just fast forward or whatnot to different spots. You'll know where we're at because it has a date and then it has the aspect that's going on if you want to listen to it at different times in the month. So we'll start with, we did talk about the first couple days last month, and we'll start with the 7th because the 7th is on Saturday, because today's Thursday. And the 7th, we have Mercury squaring Uranus. This, and the timings that we have here are Eastern USA time. So if you're in another time zone, just do the math for it. We're in Eastern USA time zone, so that's why we do it that time. So Mercury square Uranus, this happens 12:21 a.m. in the signs of Leo and Taurus. What are you feeling about Mercury squaring Uranus Saturday night?
Right. So Mercury square Uranus is going to be surprise and shocking events. So that's, and like Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus, so they do have a connection, but usually that's things take an unexpected turn, or there's some disruption or something that you're not expecting that comes up. Also, that can be a time of like great insights where you've maybe figure something out that you've been stuck on or something. Because Mercury is like your personal mental processes and how you communicate. And then like Uranus is like the collective consciousness. That's where like Uranus rules the 11th, which is groups and friends and things like that. So having those two, having the individual mind in aspect to the collective mind can kind of lead to, good at thinking outside of the box, but there's also likely to be disruptions. Things are not going to go as expected.
Right. And Mercury and Uranus are in fixed signs, so maybe not the easiest place for them to be either. Mercury likes to move fast. Uranus is spontaneous and such. So in fixed signs, that doesn't necessarily equate to the happiest planet because they want to move. Right. So there's like maybe a dichotomy of pulling and pushing going on there with that as well. Since it is the middle of the night, you might notice that you're not really tired Saturday night. Do something you can do that's like inspirational for you, because that will help you if you are up to it and you have the ability to, because you might as well use the energy if you're not really sleeping. That's what I do with myself, if I'm able to, when something's going on and I just can't sleep anyway. And this would be a good time to channel them mental powers, I think.
Yeah, I found, this is a little aside, I guess. I found when there's like stressful aspects, like when there's squares in the middle of the night, like involving like Mercury square Uranus, or Venus square Neptune, or like with an inner planet and an outer planet, when those happen in the middle of the night, that's when your dream life is I'm gonna say overactive. No, overactive. Or when you have like something that wakes you up in the middle of the night, something that startles you out of a sleep, you can like constantly, like, you can map those things as to when your sleep's going to be disturbed and stuff, or when you're going to have like disturbing dreams or disturbing thought patterns while you're sleeping. So you can kind of map those things out. I mean, I even kind of map out like when I'm going to like try to go to bed and stuff, because like you can see the energy ups and downs through the moon voided courses and the aspects and stuff like that, and I can see like, okay, this is going to be a time where I'm going to be able to lay down and sleep. And when there's not good times to do that until like late at night, then I'm just like, okay, I'm going to just stay up and work on stuff, because I don't want to go to sleep and get woken up.
Right. No, I totally understand that. I mean, of course, if you have to work, not a good idea to stay up, but if you can channel it in some way. I agree though. Sometimes it's helpful to, well, not sometimes, it is helpful to know ahead of time so you can maneuver in the way that's going to benefit you the best. So definitely taking that into consideration. In regards to also what's going on in your life in other areas too. So we end up moving on to the Sunday, September 8th. The sun makes an opposition to Saturn in Virgo and Pisces. So this is actually kind of like, I wouldn't say the opposite aspect as the prior one, but it is more of a stabilizing, grounding aspect, I would say, than the mental gymnastics that might go on with the Mercury Uranus. What are you feeling about Sun opposite Saturn in Virgo Pisces?
Right. So that's another kind of, you mentioned like kind of the stopping aspects, like with the Mercury Uranus. That's kind of another one. Sun opposite Saturn is that's probably fairly low energy, but that's going to point out to you things that aren't working which then hopefully gives you the ability to come up with a solution as to why they're not working. Yeah, it's probably not the happiest aspect in the history of the earth, but I cleaned animal cages all morning, so I'm sneezing my head off. So like the sun is opposite Saturn at least once a year, sometimes only once a year, but depending on depending on when Saturn's retrograde and stuff. But there's always at least one day a year where the sun's opposite Saturn. So
yeah, and I mean it does happen at 12:35 a.m. Eastern time, so at least it's overnight, and it's not necessarily if you're sleeping, maybe you'll sleep through it. I mean, it's about a day long aspect. Really strong in that sense. We move on to September 9th. We're building up to the middle of the month when the excitement happens. September 9th, we have Mercury entering into Virgo, and Mercury stays into Virgo until October 4th. So we have almost a whole month of Mercury in Virgo. Mercury rules over Virgo. Some people I've heard say Chiron rules over Virgo. And, if I'm going to use rulerships, which I don't generally use rulerships the way I do astrology, I would say that Chiron fits. Would you say that?
Yeah, no, I totally think that on many levels, Chiron should be the ruler of Virgo.
Yeah, you might have been one of the people that mentioned that to me, and I agree. Yes. I just couldn't remember. Yeah.
It's just
so
the wounded healer. They're good at healing other people, but like can't heal their own wounds. There's just a whole bunch of Virgo archetypes in there. Yeah,
that makes sense. So what are you expecting from this? Anything spectacular? I don't know if Mercury would be considered spectacular, because Mercury, I don't know, it's the mind is always moving quick. I think spectacular is probably more the slower moving planet. But anything that you're thinking about Mercury and Virgo?
So whenever a planet's in the sign that it rules, that it's like it's like a team in sports having home field advantage. That planet is at home in that sign, so it should function better. I would just say that the warning with Mercury and Virgo is to make sure the fine-toothed auditing tool is being pointed in a useful direction, because it can just help like make things spin out of control, because you can like I know like when anything's in Virgo, like it's really easy you're so good at auditing things and seeing things that need fixed that like you can make yourself a bit crazy. So you have to what's worth worrying about, what can I actually fix, what is it worth taking the time to fix, what is I think when you can identify problems that you can actually fix, or at least partially fix, and figure out which things are really just outside of your control, and if you can just put your energy into the things that you can actually fix, and try not to sweat the big stuff. I mean, I think that's that's the Virgo Pisces opposition there. I think I just kind of described is figuring out what is bigger than you, and what can you actually have an effect on, and try not to worry about the things that are bigger than you that you're not going to be able to fix, no matter how well you execute your ideas. So boy, that was a long-winded answer for that, wasn't it? Um, you're going to put me on a timer or a shot clock.
But do you make lists?
I make lists of lists.
While Mercury is in Virgo?
No, all the time. I feel that I know this will sound batshit crazy, but I find that makes my brain run better because I don't have to remember. Instead of remembering 17 things that are on the list, I just have to remember where the list is. So I only have to remember one thing instead of the 17 things that are on the list. That's how I look at it. So if I can just keep my notes and everything together and I know where those are, I don't have to be afraid that all the crazy ideas that run through my head are going to like disappear overnight or something. I just have to go back and check my notes.
So the lists help. That's a good thing. And maybe that's a good thing to do with Mercury and Virgo so that you're not doing what Mark just mentioned, letting all the crazy ideas run out of your mind so you don't get to actually take action upon the crazy ideas. That's funny. We have a lot of people saying hi in the chat. I just want to say hi to you guys. I just saw the messages if you're still watching. Hi, Joy, everyone. Susan. Hi, Brittany. Thanks for stopping by, everyone, and listening. Sarah, nice to see you guys. So, okay, let's see where we at. Next one is September 12th, Sun square Jupiter. Now, this one's got to be good, even though it's a square. Sun square Jupiter. Tell me about it. Virgo, Gemini, there's so much mutable stuff going on this month. It's like mutable September or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens. So let me find a starting point here before I just start rambling. So one of the
Let me put the timer on. Hold on 1 second.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I have to start the play clock. So the main foundation of all these mutable aspects is that Jupiter squares Saturn. So Jupiter and Saturn are two of the slower moving planets. So right now with Jupiter and Saturn square each other for all the way up until next spring, because Jupiter's about to go retrograde in October, I think. Yeah. That'll middle of October. That's another tricky scenario we'll get into next month. So the Jupiter Saturn square is in effect really from a month ago up until next spring, because Jupiter's going to go retrograde. And even though Jupiter moves a bit faster than Saturn, Jupiter stays in a sign for about a year. Saturn stays in a sign for about 2.5 years. But with them going retrograde close to the time where they're conjunct, that means they're going to stay together in that square pattern for a really long time, much longer than normal, because normally they would separate, but since they both change directions, that makes that aspect kind of stay in position longer. I probably explained that
makes sense.
So when you've got so Saturn is the more powerful one out of those two, because Saturn moves slower. So Saturn not only rules our 3D reality and physical structures, it's also like it's the structure of consciousness, because I see a lot of people, this is something I see a lot that I don't agree with, is like when you try to like guess somebody's sun sign or something, like people be talking about that and they'll say, oh, you don't always get their sun sign. Sometimes you're guessing their ascendant. And while that may be true, I've found too that a lot of times you guess people's Saturn signs, because Saturn is how you structure your reality, and that's the structure of your consciousness. So I think sometimes when you incorrectly guess someone's sun sign, you might actually be picking out their Saturn sign, because that's how they've built up their structures and their reality, is what
That's interesting.
their Saturn sign is. Now, too, it kind of depends, if they've got 18,000 planets aspecting their ascendant and things like that, that has to do with it too. But I think people will be surprised at how much you guess somebody's sign by what sign their Saturn is in. How much they give off that energy, because that's how they've structured their reality around them, is through where their Saturn is.
That's interesting. So, that's very interesting to hear you say that. I mean, anecdotally, I think I've seen that in myself a lot, because I have a weird Saturn at 29 degrees. So it's, yeah, I can see that. And it doesn't seem to fit me, but it does at the same time. I think our Saturn has a lot to do with the physical reality of us, so I always felt like Saturn has, of course, everybody learns the lessons and grows from their Saturn return or Saturn transits to their chart. I had physical things going on, so I felt like I embodied that very much. So that was very interesting that you just said that, like the physical part to exuding your Saturn, if you will, right? Living it out.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Totally. So Jupiter is so that's part of the economic problems we're having in the country and worldwide at this point, is that Jupiter is square Saturn, and Jupiter is the flow of finances and exports and transportation. Saturn is the limitation of flow. So when Jupiter is square Saturn, because a square is 90-degree angle, that is a limitation on the flow of finances and resources. So I'd say on a worldwide level, the economy is not going to really pick, I don't even want to say pick, the limitations on the growth of the economy are going to continue until at least next spring, when we have I think the third and final of the Jupiter Saturn squares. We won't see any kind of limitation or much of an uptick in the financial stuff until we get into next spring.
Yeah. The dates, by the way, I looked them up. So I'm a nerd like that. Yeah. So the most recent one was 19 August, but it's still in orb, because like Mark said, they're moving very slowly. They're retrograding back and forth. So they're still in orb with Jupiter, Saturn. And the next peak is December 24th this year. And the final one, before it moves on from these first squares, and I'll get to why I'm saying the first squares, is June 15th next year. So then it moves on and it goes to the opposition, which takes a little while to do that. And the reason I said it's a first is because if you remember, it was, 2020? Was it 2021 or 2020? I don't know. I'm going to look it up. That they were conjunct. Yes. That was 2020, December 21st
of 2020. Yes.
So I always look at
something else.
What was that? I talked over you. What was
which coincided with the first of something else also, which we probably can't talk about on YouTube.
Yeah, just
but Pluto's hitting that degree too right now.
Yeah, it is that. Yep. And so that's where I was kind of going at with this when I'm looking at transits. we can look at one transit and we can go, oh, well, that's whatever, and kind of piece it into our lives. But when we look at the overall of the transits, we can see the bigger picture, right? And that's how we can come up with better interpretations, by looking at what happened in the past transits and what was going on, and then seeing the underlying energies and, kind of predicting, forecasting in the future. And, when you have these outer planets like this that are moving so slowly, coming to this space, it gets to be, and then they come to a square, then they come to an opposition. It gets to be this cycle that you can see from the bigger picture, right? So that's why I mentioned the dates, the exact dates of the squares, because that's the first square since the conjunction. And then, moving on, this is how long it takes for Jupiter and Saturn to make that whole cycle around the sun till they come to a conjunction again, which will be a few years down the road. But, as you see it, as you mark the first square, you can see from that moment in 2020, it was December 21st, 2020. And then now is the squares, and like they're going back and forth. So there's a few hits there. And then, you kind of mark what's going on with yourself. It can help you to see and predict what could be going on the next, 90 degrees of the zodiac, which is another square, which would be the opposition from when they were conjunct. And then you're kind of assessing yourself, each marker like that. And it gives you like the bird's eye bigger view, and you get to see and understand the energies and how this is actually playing out. It's happening on a personal level to all of us, of course, but it also happens on a global level. And I think we can all kind of see that with technology changing as much as it is, the advancements of things that are going forward, plans. Jupiter and Saturn, to me, seem like energy of making plans. So there's this, ability for things to be planned out and changed in the process of this. So I feel like I can see that, but looking at it and judging it from the end of 2020 and to now, seeing like what things were going on, and maybe even looking at where we're headed in the next bit of time till the opposition from Jupiter Saturn actually happens, which I don't know the date of that, but I can look it up and tell you guys in a second. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure you look at astrology like that. I think the bigger perspective always gives you more of a clear view, right?
Right. So, like one, I know I've probably said this a million times too. But like part of the thing is like, there seems to be an obsession with like keeping people confused by, like constantly messing with the calendar and daylight savings time and all that. Like our bodies naturally register these flows and hit up with them, but like there's too many people in charge that don't know what they're doing, that just make changes to make changes. And so like it throws your natural, like our calendar should be 13 28-day months. That should be our calendar.
Yeah.
That would be 13 months, 28 days apiece. The first of every month would be a Monday. The last day of every month would be a Sunday. There's, we have 13 full moons in a year because we have that leftover time from each month. There's no, it's just people trying to, manipulating things to keep people's natural rhythm cycle thrown off. Like the months don't even have the same amount of days. Like February has 28 days. Every fourth year, there's a 29th day in February, but that's called leap year, when actually you would think that the other 3 years would be leap years because it's skipping over a day. Like all of it's just stupid. We should death to the calendars.
Well, I mean, they do have that extra day because, of the Earth moving around the sun. It takes that extra, quarter of a day to make that full cycle, or otherwise our seasons would be off. But you're right. It doesn't have to be all odd and kind of like, why isn't it synced up with the...
Right.
Why?
Looked like it was created by a drunken clown.
I don't know. I wasn't around when they decided that, but you know, hey, I'm living through it. So I'm just typing in the chat so you all who are here and would like to know the dates of the Jupiter Saturn squares, and then I'm going to put the opposition in there too, so you'll be able to look at that, and then we can move on to the next thing. Okay, let's go to the next thing. September 12th. We talked about the Sun square Jupiter. Okay, September 15th. Before we get to September 15th, there's something I want to talk about with the vibrations that are going on from the 11th to the 14th. So I had mentioned this in the beginning of the video. We have a Saturn, Neptune, Pluto in 55 vibration. And so just a really quick of what 55 vibration means. 55 is 11 vibration and 5 vibration. 11 times 5 is 55. So 11 vibration is a restlessness, a desire to seek something outside of the norm. So in normal astrology, is that a thing? We would divide the circle by 12s or parts of 12 normally. So like, you know, squares and sextiles and all that. But if you were to take it and divide it by 11s, that's where we would get the 11 vibration from. So that's really, we're just looking at the natal chart divided into 11 pieces. And then we're looking at it divided into 5 pieces together. That would make 11 times 5, which is 55. So that's just, I just wanted to explain that in case you didn't know how vibration charts work. They're also called harmonic charts. So during this time, from the 11th to the 14th, we have Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto making a aspect pattern in this vibration. And what this would tell us is that there is a bit of a struggle to want to put out some creativity during that time. This could be a struggle to balance things that are of reality, which is the Saturn influence there, or things to deal with the Neptune dreamy influence that's going on there. I think this is just backing up what we were talking about with the Saturn, with the Saturn Jupiter energy going on, because Jupiter does get involved later in the month. But you know, this is an opportunity to dig deep and try to figure out some of your deep held beliefs and see, you know, are they resonating with you in this moment? Do you need to let them move forward or through you, or do you need to like hold on to them and, you know, dig deeper into them? This is like a little window of opportunity, if you will, during the 11th to the 14th to kind of do that kind of work. So I encourage you to do that. But that is Saturn, Neptune, Pluto. So I would also say to you, if you have a planet that is aspecting Saturn, Neptune, or Pluto during these times, that's really, really tight in orb, meaning, you know, it's like exact or something. Because if it's not exact, it might not really be aspecting in the 55 vibration. But if it is really tight, this is going to be affecting you on a personal level. So, you know, just know that, you know, for me, like I have Pluto on my sun, literally. So there is a feeling of this is something, you know, that I'll be working on. So that's one of the stronger vibrations that are going on in this month. There's only a couple of them, but I wanted to mention that as well. So moving on to September 15th, we have a couple things going on. We have Venus trine Jupiter. That's at 1:34 a.m. And that's 20 Libra Gemini. And then we have Moon Venus Jupiter air grand trine. And we also have a Mars square the nodes at 6 Cancer and Aries. So, wow, what a day. Is this like the fun part of the month here?
Yeah, so so at that point in time, there's kind of like 15 different things functioning at once.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we also have and it's probably exact a few days later, but there's a Sun, Uranus, Pluto, Earth grand trine.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we've got that Moon, Venus, Jupiter, air grand trine.
Mm-hmm.
Mars is in Cancer, square to the nodes, and there's a lunar eclipse, or there's an eclipse 2 days after this. So this is um, this is a significant turning point in, like, everything that you think is probably solid and grounded right now. There's the opportunity for those all to flip at that point.
Interesting.
So that's there is a lot of moving wheels and a lot of agents of chaos and a lot of disruption. There's a lot of, like, everything almost is in some, and two, even for this longer duration, even like Uranus is trine Pluto, and Neptune is sextile to both of those. So Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are all in pretty tight aspect with each other for at least 3 more months. So
Mm-hmm.
when you have, even though the aspects are like good between them, I'm finding that when there's aspects to Uranus, while that can be good for making change and things, that it's when Uranus has free reign, you may get a lot more chaos than you're really ready to deal with at that time. Because the Uranus chaos disruption factor, when it has helpers, the amount of
When it has helpers, I like
the
that.
amount, the amount of chaos may be more than you really want. It's like it's exponential, and it's potentially unlimited. So while the outer planets are making good aspects, when you get, here's a direct example. We've had a very tornado-y spring and summer. I've tracked when a lot of the big tornado outbreaks has been when the moon is trine Pluto. Now, moon trine Pluto should be a trine's a good aspect, but if
Mm-hmm.
you've got the moon, which is emotions, trine to Pluto, which is death and transformation, maybe you don't necessarily want that ease of just easy access to destruction. Maybe you may not want that. So while
Mm.
on a personal level, that can be a good, helpful aspect. Um, Sometimes it can, like, unleash the hounds of chaos more so than you want. I don't even know where I
Mm.
started with this. Anyway, so the Moon, Venus, Jupiter, air grand trine, that should be a pretty good thing, because Moon is emotions, Venus is personal values, resources, things that you love. Jupiter is um, expansion, finances, that kind of thing. Um, so those in a that aspect there, unhindered by itself, is a good That's a good lineup. That's a good setup. However, what that's not taking account is to Jupiter still square to Saturn. So the returns you get out of that could be limited, but also a Moon Venus Jupiter grand trine is, if it's hitting in your chart, that's almost always a pretty good thing. So then the next part of that there is, so Mars is in Cancer, which is, so Cancer is defensive oriented. Cancer, you think of I think Cancer has the I don't want to say the most correct animal symbol of the zodiac. Because Cancer, the crab lives in its shell. It carries its home around with it. It lives in its shell. And also it tends to hide. It backs off when challenged. And it walks side to side, and it can be kind of evasive and avoids confrontation. However, if you directly attack it or attack its young, then the pinchers come out and they'll hold on to the death. So while I see a lot of things saying that Mars is in detriment in Cancer, it doesn't make it any less lethal. Like once you get, like, it's submissive at first, but once you threaten it or its surroundings, you're in for the fight of your life, because Mars in Cancer will die defending its home or its family or whatever. So Mars is square the nodes. So the nodes are destiny points. The north node is our future destiny. The south node is our past karmic stuff. So with Mars square to the nodes, that means Mars is up front and in center for attention, and Mars things are going to be of important contact. So we're going to see Mars things in the news. That's people defending their homelands, aggressive actions having to be taken. Mars square the nodes means there's a good chance your Mars is going to be challenged for a lot of people. And so too, remember, like Mars, like every country has a chart also. Every city has a chart. Every company has a chart.
Yeah.
It's going to be important things to remember over the next 2 years, next year and a half. So when these things are activated, you may be fighting to protect your homeland or your home front or your family or surroundings or whatnot. So that theme is probably going to be prominent for a while. Probably something else we should throw in there is Mars stays in a sign for a month and a half to 2 months, depending on the ecliptic and how far it is from the,
right.
Mars stays in some signs longer than others, but it's normally 6 weeks to 2 months Mars stays in a sign.
Right.
However, we've got a Mars retrograde coming up. So Mars is going to be in Cancer or Leo for 9 months.
Oh my.
Wow. As of yesterday, whatever, Wednesday, September 4th, Mars is going to be in either Cancer or Leo until I think it's May 29th of next year.
Wow.
So that's over 9 months.
Wow. It did that last time. I think it was in Gemini, wasn't it? I think. And it was
Oh
like
God,
forever in Gemini. I think
it
it was.
was.
It was like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to end?
Yeah,
It was one of those things. But yeah, when Mars and it is retrograde, that it just goes over that same. Of course, every planet does that, but it because it affects our energy. I think it's just, maybe it's more
yeah,
pronounced. Yeah. So that's
and two,
interesting as yeah, it's
yeah.
interesting
So
as we're in
wherever,
the United States going through our election on time and what you were just saying. It's very interesting. Um, defending your
and you can
spot,
see all.
know.
I think all of the presidential and I think the vice presidential candidates, that's going to be a major transit for them because they all have uh, Cancer planets or planets squaring Cancer, like Libra, or they have Leo planets. So they're all of them are going to have significant Mars transits between now and the first half of next year.
That's interesting.
And like you said, as so does the United States chart.
Yes, the
So,
United
so
States is a
and
Cancer
also I
sun.
think Canada and Mexico, I believe, are both Cancers also.
Oh, really? I haven't ever looked at their
Yes,
charts. I don't
I
think
think
that's
I think
interesting.
all three countries on the North American continent are Cancers.
Interesting. That's interesting. I agree with you though about the Cancer, the energy. It's not just all soft and squishy. That's
Yeah,
Pisces.
it is until it's
it
not. When
it is until
when
it's
it gets to
not,
the point
right?
where it's not.
Well,
And,
I think the thing of it is like if you want to think about archetypally, that's the mother, right, of the archetype, and the mother can be fierce if you're going to screw with her babies, especially.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's no
yeah.
like no holding back at that point, and anybody that's a mother can probably understand
Ma-
that. But
Mama bear
that's
energy is a real thing.
for real. It is. Yeah. So I agree with that. And I'm thinking of my people with Cancer, strong Cancer in their chart. It's, like you can see that in them. You can see that in them. Yeah. So this will be interesting, and one of the things about trines is that sometimes they're too much of a good thing. There is such a thing as too much of a good thing, So, and if the energy of the trine isn't seeming to flow smoothly, it can be disruptive. Like the person gets anxious or frustrated, or like it's wanting to go but it's not able to for some reason. If it's disrupted, then I think they can be destructive, the trines in and of themselves, if they're connecting with your chart. So I always tell people to go with the flow because the trines want you to flow. But if you get hooked up on something, and that could be events happen in your life and you really don't, like things happen and you just have no choice but to go with it. Don't get frustrated, like allow yourself to go with the flow, because sometimes those shifts happen and we really don't have an opportunity to do, any changing. We just have to go with it and not to get tied up in that, like, oh, but I was planning on this, like I was only, that was where my focus was, because that can kind of become disruptive to you too. And especially because, I mean, not so much the moon, Venus, Jupiter, but the sun, Uranus, Pluto seems to be more potential for chaos because of the planets that are in there. So that was the 15th and the 17th. Excuse me. Let's move on to the 18th. 18th, we have Mercury opposite Saturn. This
Can we
happens
go?
for,
Can we go back one day there
yeah.
to the
Oh,
17th?
yeah. We didn't even talk about the eclipse. Look at me. I'm skipping over it. I'm
Yeah.
like, we're not doing that this month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah.
So yeah, so
Eclipse.
to go with the air grand trine and the Mars square the nodes, there's a Sun, Uranus, Pluto, Earth grand trine. So kind of like how we talked about with Mercury earlier, being in Virgo, the sun's going to be in Virgo. So that's, how do I'm going to try to be nice about this. I don't, I have so many good Virgo friends. But this is kind of where the Chiron and Virgo thing kind of fits in with me too.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, like the Virgo people are very helpful, and they're always willing to reach out and lend a hand and help us stuff. The difficult part with Virgo, I think, is that it's opposite of Pisces. So it has a problem not getting stuck in the minutia and the details, and it forgets the big picture stuff sometimes. So like sometimes the question is should not be can I win this battle, but is this battle worth fighting? Or how much time, energy, and resources is it going to take to complete this task or to win this battle? It's not necessarily can you win it, but it's like, is it worth fighting? Because there's no shortage of battles to fight or things to fix, but it kind of I guess, and some of this is just me getting into my old geezardly nature of like there's only so much time in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I already have like 50,000 things going on. So I've learned to, while there's always a battle that can be fought, it's like the question is, should that battle be fought? Am I gonna, even if I win the battle, is the payoff gonna be worth the amount of effort that I'm gonna put into it?
That's a good point. And so you think with the Pisces, Virgo energy, there's the potential to get caught up in that, like in the minutia as opposed to the bigger picture, or get wound up in the battle when it's not even worth fighting.
Yep. I think that the Virgo people get lost in the weeds too much. And I think probably the Pisces people are too selective, maybe over the battles they fight, and will tend to gloss over things that maybe they should stop for a minute and look at the minutia. So that's where the Virgo Pisces opposition can help each other. Is the Pisces energy can help the Virgo be a little more balanced and not get stuck in the minutia, and the Virgo people can help the fish people to stay grounded a little bit and figure out which battles that are worth fighting. I think that might be a proper balance of that energy. So just, I guess, with that Sun, Uranus, Pluto, Earth grand trine. I mean, Uranus trine Pluto, like you were talking about the aspects. So people who were born in my time period, like 8,000 years ago, my generation has the Uranus Pluto conjunction. So now we've got, like you were talking about, the aspects moving, like the Saturn conjunctions, and then the squares, or the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, and then we're at the square. So the Uranus Pluto is now at the trine, where in the mid 1960s they're at the conjunction. They've moved on to the trine aspect now. And there's a couple aspects in between. But right now we're at the Uranus-Pluto trine. So that can be rapid change and transformation of society. So I think with the sun completing that Earth grand trine, I think there could be some special things to unlock things that we can find in that time period. And if you look at that, Neptune will be opposite the sun, sextile Uranus and Pluto, and then there's the full moon, which is when the sun and moon are opposite. So that moon is going to be conjunct Neptune, and the sun will be in Virgo. So you've got sun, moon, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, all in a big configuration together, with moon and Neptune in Pisces, and then a planet in the 3 Earth signs. So that's a big opportunity, I think, to like figure some things, because the full moon brings things to a head, and that full moon is. Oh wait, that's not for everybody. Never mind. I'm gonna stop it at that. I was rambling on to something else that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, that grand trine and Earth signs does all exact, like really close to each other. So the first one, the first part of that is, oh my gosh, now I missed it. I lost it. Sun trine Uranus, and that happens on the 19th. And then the 22nd, Sun trine Pluto. And I think I missed one. Yeah, I don't know. I missed the other one. Oh, is it Mercury trine Uranus? No, I don't know. Maybe I didn't put it in here. Oh, Sun trine Uranus, Sun trine Pluto. I don't know.
Yeah.
Where's the third one? I'm not sure. Maybe it's actually not in this list, and it was missed. It was not put in this list.
If it was an interplanet thing,
it's possible.
Yeah, I may, because this is kind of the overview. I do a more detailed anal retentive thing like every day with all the exact moon aspects and everything. So this,
and actually we should talk about that for a minute. I know we're like midstream here, but we sometimes don't do that in the beginning. You know, if you are interested in astrology and knowing what's going on with the planets, Mark does post things every day on Facebook. You do the moons, and all the ingresses and the aspects, right?
Yeah, like any of the the 5 major aspects involving stuff. I post like that.
Yeah, so you should follow him if you haven't followed him already. I know there's some people watching that already know you, but his link to his Facebook is in the description. So just make sure you follow him there, because that is how you can connect with him and, you know, hear his amazing astrology posts. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. I feel like this coming up, you know, middle of the month, not the end of the month, but the middle of the month, it's like a lot of things going on all at one time. It's almost hard to decipher sometimes what exactly is motivating, pushing the, you know, the self, if that makes sense. There's just so much going on. You were mentioning though about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, right? Isn't that the one that you were mentioning? Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are aspecting each other.
Yes.
So, and I was looking at the vibrations too. So this is really long, and this is only a 3-minute or less, 3-degree or less orb between the three of them. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in 43 vibration. And 43 vibration is a prime number. So you're not looking at, what times what to make it 43. I researched 43 vibration, and it really is about focusing on complex and unconventional thinking. Sometimes it can be like a disillusion of the self, to go on a journey of some sort. And Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, this circuit in 43 vibration really is a transformative exploration. It is opportunity to look at innovation, new ideas, and deep transformation, breaking free from traditional things that we normally do. I mean, this is very Pluto and Aquarius, but this goes a little bit deeper than just Pluto and Aquarius. But, these shifts are not easy. So we already know that we have stuff going on, heavy stuff going on this month. But, this 43 vibration seems to be that there is a gift that happens after going through this transformation. So I think that's a good thing. And I just wanted to add that to what you were saying about the energies of Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. And I mean, it's going on for some time. The energy with the 43 vibration is only from September 22nd to October 5th when it's really strong. And the peak is the 22nd and 23rd. But it is definitely, something to be mindful of during this time. Maybe thinking about how, doing some reflection on things that you conventionally would normally do, like on an everyday. Does that need to be revamped? Does that need to go into a space where you're not necessarily just continuing on the same path just because that's what you've always done? Maybe there's something deeper in that for you. But this would be a good time to give yourself an opportunity to reflect upon that energy. So I did want to mention that too, because you were talking about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and it's also strong in the vibration. So that makes sense. It seems like there's so many different layers to things going on during this time of the month that it's, like I said, it's kind of hard to decipher what is what. So,
yeah. And these aspects, like the Jupiter Saturn is in like the 19-ish degree area, and then you've got the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto all in the late degrees. Then the Mars square the nodes is kind of in the lower degrees. Mm-hmm. So like everyone's chart is really getting hit with one of these, because you've got something pretty much in like all the degrees that's happening. So yeah, this is so I know I've said this a million times too, but like none of this is normal. Mm-mm. This is like, astrology does not work this way for 980 out of every 1,000 years. We don't have 8 million things going on constantly for a 6-year period. It's usually, you have big years here and there and stuff like that. But this is, really, late 2019 through early 2026 that's a nonstop carnival clown circus extravaganza.
It makes me think of one time a friend of mine said to me, we were talking about just different events in your life and our lives and stuff, and he said to me that certain events are, after that happened, then it's like, when you look back in hindsight, it's like, oh, well, after that, it's like that time period, like we can all say that about, oh yeah, 2020. So like, none of
Right.
us living through that time is going to forget that, you know? So, okay, that was like a corner we turned. So I always like to think of it like that. And I feel like that's what we're all doing collectively. We're turning the corner. There's something, you know, we're going through, but and like you said, no one gets to escape that shift, you know, that collective shift that we're all going through, you know, together. It's just kind of like, where do you want to land on the spectrum of living it out in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So did we talk about Mercury trine Uranus? I think we did. Did we?
No, we
No.
had the Mercury square Uranus.
Oh yeah.
Like
So
earlier
Mercury makes a trine to Uranus, and that happens on September 24th. And then on the 25th, it makes an opposition to Neptune. So it's a busy Mercury month. Mercury's moving fast, though. So it's already out of its retrograde. It's taking off. So what are you feeling about this mercurial days here?
Yeah, so the trine to Uranus and the opposite to Neptune, which means that there's two, probably a trine to Pluto, probably shortly after that.
Yep.
I mean, that's you getting in touch with your subconscious. I mean, that's the Mercury's at the end of Virgo at that point, and it's you know, when Mercury's making aspects to the outer planets like that, you're getting a lot of messages from the universe on things.
Yes, a lot of messages. That makes sense. Maybe journaling them or writing them down, or kind of like taking inventory of those ideas and thoughts might be helpful. Mercury is the mind, so that's busy. It's going to be busy during this time too.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because it's just Mercury moves so fast, it'll come up and make aspects to these planets again. You know, be a different aspect, but like in a few months, when Mercury's in Scorpio, it will be making similar aspects to these planets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a good thing to keep track of, I think.
It is. So on September 29th, we have the Sun conjunct the North Node and Mercury conjunct the South Node. Wow. Both on the same day, huh?
Yeah. So that's the Sun Mercury conjunction on the South Node.
Oh, so I'm sorry. I read that wrong. They're both on the South Node. That one was the North, and whatever. My dyslexia brain went backwards on that one.
Yeah.
So interesting. What is this? What is this bringing to the table? The South Node, Sun, Mercury.
Yeah. So again, that's message. You know, things hitting the South Node is messages from the past, or things you've kept buried, or you know, things that have not oops, get that there. Things you've forgotten about. That's another, you know, talents you forgot to use, or that you've forgotten that you have. Also be like clearing out like old memories and things like that. That's a Sun and Mercury on the South Node. It's like clearing out, you know, old projects that you never finished, or unprocessed emotions, things like that aren't useful anymore. I think that's another good thing for the planets hitting the South Node. I think that's another good.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it too. Things, memories that you've processed, you might have them come up, right? I would imagine events
Yeah.
might happen, or yeah, they might be triggered on some level or another to bring it back up into the forefront, which is interesting. And I didn't really realize that conjunction that was going to be right on the South Node. So yeah, that will be another interesting energy. I mean, the Mercury and the Sun are not necessarily, they're easier planets, but the South Node seems to have this connotation that can be more challenging, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you? Yeah. That's what I kind of felt myself, but I didn't know if that's how you looked at it too.
It has like a karmic flavor to things.
Yeah, like unresolved things. It's not in the same sense of like Mercury retrograde, where it's like these mind things come up per se, but this does involve Mercury. So I don't know. Maybe it will be some things to do with the mind, but that karmic South Node stuff comes back to you. Because that's something I think that the universe, the supply and demand, the energy out and the energy in, it's distributed evenly whether we like it or not. And the karmic thing is real whether we like it or not. So it's like always best to try your best. Nobody's perfect, but to be on the path where you're okay with whatever is going to come back to you because of your actions. I always try to remember that. But this seems like that would be that kind of time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So our last aspect for September is Mars trine Saturn, and that's in Cancer, Pisces, and then the Sun conjunct Mercury. So Sun conjunct Mercury, because they were both conjunct the South Node the day before. Yeah.
So they
Mars trining Saturn.
Yeah. So to me, like, Mars is your offense. Mars is, your energy level, reaching out to do things. Saturn is, our 3D reality. Saturn is rules, laws, restrictions. So I think, to me, Mars trine Saturn is a great aspect for if you have a big project or something that requires a lot of heavy lifting, literally or metaphorically. I think Mars trine Saturn is a lot. You have access to a lot of energy and a lot of Mars trine Saturn can have a lot more stamina than Mars would normally have, because it's got that Saturn, it's trine to that Saturn fortitude that I think helps sustain that energy for longer than. So to me, that's like, if you've got a big project or something you're working on, that's a good energy to, even if it's rearranging your sock drawer or something. I mean, that that's a good energy for like fixing things and for
well, that makes sense.
taking on big projects, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, I think the Mars trine Saturn gives you the stabilizing force to complete the task. which is good. You want to complete the task. Yeah, September is a heavy month. It's hopefully not going to be as heavy as last month, because it feels like everybody pretty much had things going on in August, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think there's going to be as much going on, but hopefully there's a little more like progression and growth out of this than, and because that last month was just screwed up, because had that long Mercury retrograde, and then the mutable T square in the middle of, and then the Uranus station, like, you were building towards that at the end. So it was just like chaos and blockages and delays. So I think there's still that big amount of energy, but hopefully a lot less blockage to things. And to paint the frame around this is we're in the last 2.5 months of Pluto and Capricorn for our life. It's going to be over 200 years before Pluto's back into Capricorn. So we're seeing the destruction and rebirth of like everything. So that's probably a little easier for the Pisces crowd to deal with than some of the other signs. So I get, if I were to sum this up in a sentence, I guess it would be, don't worry about it as much about the things that are leaving. Put your energy into building things that will be useful on the other side of this.
That's a good point. That is a really good point, because sometimes we do that to ourselves, right? We get too wrapped up in what is already gone, and we end up spending our energy in that way, and then we're like wiped out to really embrace what's good and what's new and what's forward thinking. We do that as, I think it's just a normal human kind of thing. Yeah,
I agree.
So this was fun. I want to mention again, for anybody that's made it through or has skipped through the video to listen to the rest of the month here, you can find Mark. Mark, your email is Metheny1984 at Gmail. Is that it?
At Yahoo.
At yahoo.com.
The Gmail one is the one for the Google stuff. I don't really use that one other than for.
Okay. Well, I just want people to be able to reach out to you if you're interested in getting a consultation from Mark. We're working on getting him a website put up again. Hopefully that'll be done maybe in the next couple months. But you can definitely reach out to him or reach out to me, and I'd be happy to send him a message if you don't have his email. But yeah, I'm glad we got to do this, even though it was a few days late into September. Do you have any last thoughts about September before we move forward?
I just say from this point on, for a while, we're in a flux, ever moving, ever changing environment. So if things go too bad or too good over a short period, just remember things are, it's kind of about the long term now. There's just going to be a lot of change and adjustments. So just don't fret too much over your L's. There's another game the next day. Just keep, you just get up and keep fighting is kind of where we're at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't let it kind of push you into a space of feeling down or frustrated or like you're hitting against the wall, because that's not going to serve you either. Keep yourself, I always like to think the idea and I tell people this all the time, when you're going through one of those moments, because we all have them, just remembering this too shall pass, because all of the moments you've been through in the past have passed and you're here in the moment. So it's proof, living proof that you're going to make it. This too shall pass. So in those hectic moments, remember that. Yeah.
I had something else. It left my brain. Probably wasn't very important. like a lot of the things that run through my brain.
Yeah, we're gonna try next month to also go on to Rumble. Mark has a Rumble channel, so we're gonna try to also stream on there. It seems like we can speak a little bit better, easier, more open than on Rumble than we can on the bigger platforms like YouTube, and I'm sure Meta as well, Facebook, whatever. So that would be kind of cool. It's a little technical to get streaming on there, but we did it once on a channel I made, but we want to do it on Mark's. So you'll definitely have to pay attention to us on social media, and we will let you guys know when we are going to do that. But yeah, this was a good conversation and hopefully helpful for the people that were able to listen to it.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for watching and for commenting in the chat. I was trying to reply to stuff, but it kept coming up under Starlene's name.
Oh, you could just say all kinds of crazy stuff and be like, wow, she's nuts. What's wrong with her? Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So I wasn't purposely ignoring people. Everything was coming up under her name. So it was
That's funny. We'll have to figure out how we can make it come up as your name instead of mine. I definitely don't want you to have control of my brain. No offense. I'm just kidding.
No. I shouldn't have control of anyone's brain.
We would make quite the human, though, especially right now, given my sun and transiting Pluto and Neptune on your sun. I mean, I don't even know what that would look like. Dangerous is what, and that is actually for VA people. That's an isotrap because we're both 0 and 29 degrees Sun and Pluto. Oh my gosh, and Neptune and his sun. Oh my gosh, that would be a really crazy situation. Wow, imagine that. We should do a composite chart and see what goes on with our charts and the transit. All right. Well, thank you, Mark, as always. And thanks, everybody, for watching. And we will see you on the next one next month. All right. Bye.